NASA once ran an experiment you almost couldn't design more perfectly. They took two men with the exact same DNA, identical twins, Scott and Mark Kelly, both astronauts. They sent one of them to live in space for almost a year, and they kept the other one home, on Earth, as a perfect copy to compare against. And when the one from space came back down, the twins weren't quite identical anymore. Now, I'm going to tell you exactly what changed and what didn't, because the internet lied to you about this, and the real version is actually stranger. But that experiment is just the doorway, because here's the question that's been eating at me. That was one man for 1 year in orbit right next to Earth. So, what happens when it's not 1 year, but a whole life? When it's not one person, but generations? What happens when a human being isn't just visiting space, but is born out there? What would a place like Mars actually turn us into? Let's start with what we actually know, because it's unsettling enough on its own. Your body is not built for space. At all. It was tuned, down to the cell, for one very specific planet. And the moment you leave it, your body starts quietly falling apart. Start with your muscles. In space, they barely have to work. Nothing's pulling on them. So your body does the logical thing and starts dismantling them. Why maintain muscle you're not using? Astronauts lose muscle mass fast, even the heart, which is also a muscle and suddenly has a much easier job pumping blood with no gravity to fight. Then your bones. This one's brutal. Without gravity constantly loading them, bones start dumping calcium and hollowing out. Astronauts can lose bone in the range of 1 to 1.5% per month in places like the legs and hips. Let that sink in. A few months up there, and your skeleton has aged like years. And we found that exercise, hours of it, every single day only slows this. It doesn't stop it, it keeps going. Your eyes actually change shape in space, and vision can get worse. Fluid floats up into your head, so astronauts walk around puffy-faced and congested. Your immune system starts misfiring. And remember Scott Kelly? Here's the honest version, because this is where the headlines went insane. His DNA did not mutate. His actual genetic code stayed the same. What changed was his gene expression, which genes were switched on and off as his body scrambled to adapt. Most of it reset within months of landing, but around 7% of those changes were still hanging on, in genes tied to his immune system, DNA repair, and bone formation. And the little caps on his chromosomes that normally shrink with age, in space they got longer, then snapped back within 2 days of him landing. So no, space doesn't rewrite your DNA in a year, but it absolutely reaches into your body and starts flipping switches. And every single thing I just described, that's from short trips. Now let's break the thing that makes all of this so much bigger. Here's a thought that genuinely reframes everything for me. For 4 billion years, life on Earth has been shaped by 1,000 changing forces. The temperature swung, the atmosphere's oxygen went up and down, the continents moved, predators came and went. Life adapted to water, then land, then air, constantly reinventing itself to survive whatever changed. But through all of it, across every creature that has ever lived, one single thing never changed. Not once. Gravity. 1G, the same pull everywhere, for every ancestor in the entire history of life. It's the most constant force there has ever been, which means evolution has never once had to solve the problem of low gravity. It's never been tested. It's a completely blank page. Every fish, every dinosaur, every human being was built assuming that pull would always be there. So take that away, drop a body down to Mars at about 38% of Earth's gravity, and you're not just making life a little harder, you're exposing it to a force it has zero evolutionary experience with. 4 billion years of preparation, and nature never wrote a single line of code for this. And that's for a grown adult who already finished developing on Earth. Which brings us to the part we understand the least, and the part that's the most staggering to think about. Everything I've told you so far comes from studying adults. Grown astronauts who built their bodies here, on Earth at 1G, and then went up. And here's the quietly terrifying truth almost nobody mentions. We have almost no idea what would happen to a child who develops in low gravity. A baby conceived, grown, and born on Mars. Because it's never happened, not to a human. That's a near total blank in science. But we can reason about it. And the reasoning is wild. Think about how a body actually builds itself. Your bones didn't just grow to a genetic blueprint, they grew thick and strong specifically because gravity was fighting them the whole time. Every step you ever took told your skeleton how much load to prepare for. So a child growing up in a third of the gravity, their bones might never get the signal to become dense and strong. They could grow up lighter, thinner, more fragile, maybe taller, stretched out because less force is pulling them down. Their heart, that muscle again, might develop weaker because it never had to pump against a full G. And here's the haunting part. A kid like that, raised on Mars, might be perfectly fine on Mars, but they could probably never come to Earth. Our gravity would feel like 3 times their normal weight, crushing down on a skeleton that never trained for it. Their spine and hips could fracture under a world their parents called home. Picture that for a second. A human being who can look up at the blue planet their whole species came from and know their own body could never survive a visit. Born of Earth, but permanently exiled from it. And that's before we even get to the radiation. Mars barely has a magnetic field to shield it, so the surface gets hit with cosmic radiation every day, very roughly the equivalent of a chest or hip X-ray daily, forever. On developing bodies over generations, radiation is exactly the kind of thing that damages DNA and reshapes what gets passed on. So now we're not just talking about bodies bending to a new world, we're talking about the genetic code itself, under new pressure with nowhere to hide. Which finally takes us to the big one. The question you came here for. Give it not 1 generation, but 10, 100. What does a species become out there? Okay, this is the part where I have to be straight with you because I promised no nonsense. Everything past this point is informed speculation. Nobody knows. There is no human data. But it's not fantasy either. It's built on things we've actually watched happen in other living creatures. So let me show you the real evidence. And then let's imagine together. Because we have run multi-generational experiments, just not on humans. Scientists raised tiny worms across generations in Mars-like conditions, low gravity, weak magnetic field, and they showed real, measurable changes passed down through the generations. And jellyfish bred in space grew their gravity-sensing organs differently, so differently that when they came back to Earth, they couldn't orient properly. They'd become creatures of space that no longer quite worked here. So life does change across generations when you change gravity. That part isn't speculation. The only question is what it would do to us. And here's where some scientists let themselves imagine, and I'll flag clearly that this is imagination grounded in logic, not established fact. Over hundreds or thousands of years, a human population on Mars might slowly drift toward a different kind of body. Some researchers have floated ideas like more compact, efficient frames to conserve heat in a frozen world. Or the opposite. Taller, longer limbs, because low gravity no longer punishes height. Skin or cellular changes that better resist radiation. Maybe changes to the eyes in a world with a dimmer, more distant sun. A few scientists have even given this imagined future a name, Homo martianus, a daughter species of humanity. Still us, but no longer only us. Now, the honest break here. Natural evolution is slow, and a few centuries probably isn't enough for nature alone to build a whole new kind of human. But Mars changes that math in 2 ways. First, the pressures out there are extreme and relentless, and harsh pressure speeds evolution up. And second, and this is the twist, the humans going to Mars will be the same humans who just learned to edit their own genes. Faced with a world actively trying to weaken their bones and fry their DNA, do you really think they'd wait 10,000 years for nature? Or would they reach for the gene editing tools we already have and start designing their children to survive out there? That's the real answer, I think. Humans on Mars probably wouldn't just evolve. They'd be the first species in history to evolve on purpose, half shaped by an alien world, half shaped by their own hand, into something built for a place we were never meant to be. So let me leave you where I started, with those two twins. One stayed on Earth, one went up, just for a year, and came back subtly changed, his cells still whispering about a place his body was never built for. He got to come home. His body still belonged here. But the child born on Mars might never have that. They'd open their eyes under a butterscotch sky, in a third of our gravity, their body quietly building itself into something Earth could never hold. They'd look up and see a small blue dot, the world their whole species clawed its way out of, and they might understand, in their bones, that they can never go there. That home for them is the red dust under their feet, and that they aren't quite the same animal their great-grandparents were. We spent 4 billion years becoming perfectly, exquisitely Earthlings, every cell tuned to this one pale blue world, and the moment we finally leave it for good, the moment we truly become a species of more than one planet, we might have to stop being fully human to do it. So here's what I actually want to know, and I mean it. Tell me down in the comments. If our descendants change out there, different bodies, different limits, maybe edited on purpose to survive, are they still us? Are they humanity's next chapter or the first branch of something new? Where's the line where a human being stops being human? I genuinely don't know. But our grandchildren might be the ones who have to answer it.